Cafe Du Monde.
Is this a beignet place?
Eat it slow. Never gonna have your first beignet ever again.
Pretty cool.
It's cool, right? You like it?
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week we're taking a look at the beignets featured in Chef from Cafe Du Monde. I've got a box of their commercially available beignet mix here. I thought that'd be a good place to start, and then we can take a crack at making some of these suckers from scratch. We gotta start by reading the directions on the box, which tell us to measure out 2 cups of the mix into a large bowl and combine with 7 ounces of room temperature water. So we're gonna do as the box tells us and mix these guys together until a shaggy ball of dough forms. Don't be worried if it's a little sticky. Beignet dough is sticky by nature, but we do want it to form a cohesive ball so we can turn it out onto a generously floured countertop. I'm talking Scrooge at the end of Christmas Carol generous. Plop out our dough, make sure that it's lightly dusted on both sides with flour, and then roll it out to about a 1/4 inch thickness. You don't have to measure it or anything. This dough is pretty forgiving. Just roll it out so it's nice and thin, and trim off the edges so we can cut it into nice uniform rectangles. You can use a knife here, but ideally you want to use a pizza cutter. It's going to give you cleaner, neater cuts that don't drag or stretch the dough. Ball up and roll out your scraps and cut those into rectangles as well. Don't be wasteful. And then over on the stove, we've got 2 quarts of vegetable oil heating to 368, 369, 370. Oh, close enough. If you don't have a digital thermometer, go get one, but if you doggedly refuse to, you can tell if your oil's hot enough if your beignets pop up after about 5 seconds. We want these to brown as evenly as possible, so we're going to baste their skyward facing side with oil continually for the first 2 minutes that these guys are in the fryer, and then we're going to give them a flip, let them cook for another 30 or so more seconds until they are golden brown and crisp. Evacuate them onto a paper towel lined plate, let them drain for a few minutes before dusting them liberally with powdered sugar. I'm talking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez liberal, because beignets derive most of their sweetness from the mountains of sugar they are bedusted with. Now, these are pretty good, but as you can see, they're pretty thin and they're not very soft and fluffy, and they certainly don't make me feel like donning my best linen suit and ordering up a cloudy snifter of absinthe. So we're going to take a crack at making some of these things from scratch. We're going to start with buttermilk, 1.5 cups of it, to which we're going to add 1/2 cup of boiling milk, making a tepid mixture perfect for allowing our 4 teaspoons of dry yeast to bloom. And just to encourage their feeding frenzy, we're going to add our sugar, 2.5 tablespoons worth, and we're going to give that a good mix. Don't be afraid to deploy your adorable little whisk. Set that aside for 10 minutes, during which time we're going to assemble our dry ingredients. We're going to start with 22 ounces of bread flour, to which we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon each of baking soda and kosher salt. I was skeptical about using bread flour at first, but I think it ended up making the beignets nice and chewy, which is what we're after. So we're going to mix those together and then add our milky, yeasty, sugary concoction. Drop down our dough hook and mix for about 3 to 4 minutes until a mass of dough forms that begins to pull away from the sides of the bowl, but is still a big sticky mess. Try to resist adding flour unless it's really super wet, but you want it to look just like this, a nice sticky situation. We're going to pull everything down off the dough hook, cover, and let rest for 1 hour, during which time it's going to double up in size. Wow. It should be less sticky and more tacky at this point, but it's still plenty sticky, so we're going to flour our work surface with unbridled enthusiasm. Turn out the dough using a bowl scraper if you've got one, and before it gets the chance to stick to the table, we're going to coat it with a nice thick layer of flour that's going to create the perfect consistency in our dough once we've rolled it out, which we're going to do next. Roll it out to the same thickness as before, trim the edges as before, and cut into rectangles as before. We've still got our oil preheated to 370 degrees Fahrenheit, into which we're going to deposit our donuts, and immediately you can see that these are puffing up in a way more significant and exciting way than our last batch. We're cooking them for about the same amount of time on each side, draining them on paper towels and dusting them down with lots and lots of powdered sugar. Now these are the beignets that I was looking for. I'm not going to say that they were as good as Cafe Du Monde, but they were damn close. As my neighbor said, they are crunchy, squeezy, and soft. 3 of the finest descriptors I could have asked for. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go hit the Stairmaster.